Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 352. We have a fun one for you. Shop Talk Live at Woodworking in America 2025. That's right, Vic Teslin, Alex Dolese, Shea Alexander, and me on stage taking questions from the audience. It gets a little raucous, but we have a great time. Before we get started, here's a brief word from our show sponsors, Carbide 3D, Old Masters, and Jet Tools. Looking to bring your ideas to life? With the Shea CNC router from Carbide 3D, you can design, cut, and create like a pro, right from your own workshop. Made in the USA, built to last, and ready to handle wood, plastic, or aluminum, Shea gives you precision, power, and endless possibilities. Whether you're a full-time woodworker, engineer, or weekend creative, Shea turns imagination into reality. Shea from Carbide 3D. Build your future, one cut at a time. You've spent hours perfecting your project. Don't let an average finish undo all that work. Trust Old Masters to make it shine. For over 60 years, Old Masters has been the trusted name for wood finishers who demand professional grade results. Their stains deliver deep, rich color with unmatched clarity. And when it's time to protect your project, Masters Armor Interior Water-Based Clear Finish goes on effortlessly, dries fast, and leaves your furniture, cabinets, and floors with a crystal clear, ultra-durable finish. Learn more at myoldmasters.com and bring a craftsman's finish to every project. In your shop, every cut counts. That's why Jet helps you do more. From the bold new Jet Black Performance Coating lineup to the groundbreaking 20-inch smart drill press with touchscreen speed control, best-in-class safety innovations, and motor load monitoring that protects you and your work, Jet puts precision, reliability, and power at your fingertips. And with an industry-leading 5-year warranties and a nationwide parts and service network you can count on, you're covered from day one. Find your next machine at jettools.com. Jet. Do more. And now, on to our show.
I don't have an instrument to play the theme song with, so welcome to every time. I knew it too. Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 352. We are live at Woodworking in America. It is the last thing happening. We're in Des Moines, Iowa, and it's been a great show, but I am joined by Alex Dolese. And it is Dolese, it's not Dolese, right?
It's Dolese, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
But I get Dolese off.
Okay, all right. And we also have Shea Alexander. It is Alexander, right? And we have Vic Teslin.
All right, and it's funny that you thought that you could just ignore him, but it's an hour.
We're in this for an hour.
At least.
It'll run its course when it runs its course. So, right off the bat, let's just talk about the show a little bit. I think it's been a really busy show, especially you two have had. Shea, you had to move rooms because one room was too small.
Yes.
And Alex, I mean, you had a standing, first day, come on in, that's fine. First day, first thing, this room was absolutely packed. There were people standing in the doorway. So did you see that coming?
I did not see that coming. It was a little stressful.
Okay. So what was the best question that you got in your discussion about wood movement?
Well, my favorite part of it was mostly talking about people's failures in wood movement. That's probably what I enjoyed the most when we get together and be like, what's failed for you? But
what was the best, what was the most dramatic?
Oh man, one person built a bed for their daughter and didn't think about movement in the headboard.
Uh-huh.
And they said that she woke up one night like a gunshot went off because that headboard cracked. Imagine sleeping in this wonderful bed that your father made for you, and then it just cracks. I think that was fun. A lot of questions about just like the process of processing wood and different ways to attach. And it was kind of fun to get into like the nitty gritty of like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, what do I need to think about on this specific thing? Because I feel like it's so broad. And that's fun.
Cool. And Shea, you were the overachiever, and all of us presented twice, but you presented 2 different topics.
You know, I had no idea that was an option.
Like he found that out this morning talking to me.
To underachieve, because I was like looking at the board and I was like, did somebody copy the Friday schedule onto the Saturday? Like somebody messed up the signs out here. I was like, Alex and Vic are doing the same thing twice. And then I said something to Vic and he's like, oh no, I'm just doing the same thing twice. I'm like, oh, that would have been nice. But yeah, so it doesn't matter to me. I think we had some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were your 2 classes?
So the first one was turning for post and rung chair joinery. And so just kind of hitting like, how do you obtain a really, really tight joint consistently, right? So like a chair can have, 20 tenons of just the rungs, right? So you do like a set of 10 chairs, you get 200 tenons going on. So how do we do that like super consistently? And then the second one was just demystifying the draw knife and the spoke shave. Like, how do we use these tools effectively? So the chair that I brought had no turned parts in it. It was all done with a spoke shave. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any surprising questions, or did you have anything like that?
I don't think so. I think it was pretty typical. Lots of people that were very unsure when I told them that I was going to turn a tenon to 625 thousandths. And then say, hey, I'm going to reduce this down to, 615 thousandths. And then I think it was 618, but obviously just, taking a little bit off, and just through consistency and actually using just a measuring tool that, measures a little bit more accurately than a 16th, so that we actually attain those kind of numbers.
I'm really regretting not seeing that now, because that sounds... I've got questions.
You've got questions. Cool. Well, that's why we're here.
So how are you nailing that measurement? So, I mean, obviously skill and practice.
Well, and none of those techniques that I shared are original to me.
Yeah.
Right. So like I've learned them from other people that have kind of championed that work. So it's what I showed in the demo was called the wrench method. So basically take an open end wrench and a dial caliper, and you file open the wrench very carefully until you nail that dimension that you want, and you use that as a sizing guide behind your parting tool as you're cutting down your tenon. And I mean, there's a few other things that we went over to be able to do that consistently and quickly, but essentially that's what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Filing a wrench must be brutal.
It's weird because most wrenches, like a lot of people don't think about, because we also talked about just using a measuring tool that a dial caliper, right? Like most of us, we just stop at a 16th or a 32nd. Like that's where our tape measures stop. So let's go further than that. And if you think about most of us in our work, we use this tape measure and we get, our eye and our feel and everything. And so over the years, we can say, oh, just with our eyeball, we can say, oh, that's off a 16th.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what if we were using a finer measuring tool? Right? Can't we say, oh, well, that's off a 64th confidently, right? Because we've familiarized ourselves with it. So using just a finer measuring tool, and so you think about a 5/8 wrench, 625 thousandths. 5/8 wrenches aren't 625 thousandths. They're consistently 10 thou over because they got to fit on this sloppy nut that people rounded off with vice grips, right? So you actually got to start with a smaller wrench and file it open.
Okay, so
right?
Yeah. This is sounding worse.
Yeah. But you can do that for any tenon size. So we also did an arm joint and a rocking chair. So that's a 1-inch tenon, stub tenon on that. So that's a 1-inch wrench. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Vic.
Yo.
What did you present on, Vic?
Well, we talked about multifunction tables.
Yeah.
How they're flexible and they're useful and they're not as pretty maybe as
I like the orange top of yours. I thought it was a nice color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Cheeto orange, if you will.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So they're nice.
Pumpkin, but fine.
Yeah. I didn't really
Mine-
get many
mine's classier.
questions. I think a lot of people were stunned into silence, but but no, I think it's just like it's a very different way of working because we're used to using vintage style benches. And so it's sort of iconic in a way, right? To see these shapes, the shapes of these benches. And then all of a sudden you've got this thing that looks super modern and like full of holes. And but then once you start to see how that integrates with modern making abilities and tools and skills, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this is actually kind of a smart idea.
Yeah.
I don't get many of them, but
Well,
You didn't tell them to burn their Rubos, did you?
no, I told them specifically not to burn their Rubos.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because like probably paid about, $3,000 for that 16 quarter cherry, right?
so I actually heard that you were talking about a multifunction table now.
Yeah, I want one. Yeah.
What was the thing that was surprising to you about this?
I think I really like the versatility of using it in different applications with your body.
Right.
Because I'm always worried, like I do this for a living. I'm constantly sanding in one direction and I'm trying to change that up. But for me, like a normal bench, which I have multiple in my shop, are all right-handed benches. And it's really hard to change your body position to like use in a way that's really ergonomic and you're changing your sides and stuff. And I really love the idea of having a flex space that's on wheels that you can move around your shop, that I can clamp things and hold things, and I can like switch it and sand with my left hand for a little bit and try to like even out I'm like a little concerned about my like arm strength differences right now.
My clothes are starting to fit a little.
Yeah, I like really need to start using my left hand to do things.
The woes of a pro. Well, okay, so I think it's time for me to do the unthinkable and ask the audience if there's any questions for the folks up here. I know that everybody's been asking questions along the way. Oh my God, please, somebody have a question? All right, yes, sir.
So this is for Shea. With the wrench method, instead of taking a wrench and making it bigger, have you thought about getting with someone like Ben and 3D printing some sort of measuring tool?
So,
Yes, so
so
the-
for the listening, for the audio-only audience, they asked if Shea had ever thought about 3D printing or having a tool 3D printed instead of a wrench for a measuring device. So.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I have considered doing like CNC'd in like a steel alloy rather than plastic. It does get hot, like there is some friction there, so I'd worry that it would open up over time. But I have considered doing like a CNC machined, basically a CNC machined guide at your typical tenon sizes that's actually accurate to 1,000th. Yeah, and I think it would be useful for at least for chair makers that are turning on the lathe. I think it would be useful. A lot of people end up just using what's known as the Badan tool with their beading parting tool, which is like a little hook over arm in front of the beading parting tool. But the way a Badan tool works, you can push past, so it's really easy to mess up a tenon. You can get pretty consistent with it, and I do use that for things that I don't have wrenches ground for. I got to turn something 3/4, right? And you can attain good surface quality with that. But especially when you get down to like small stuff, like 3/8, the Badan tool gets a little cumbersome. So I have considered that, yeah.
Very cool. Anything else out there? Yeah.
We're all on a journey, woodworking. Have you
Wait,
all-
hang on. I'm going to bring the mic over to you because you're close, and this sounds like it's going to be a lot for me to repeat.
All right, we're all on this woodworking journey, and we've come to this event. Have you folks learned something that you didn't know before you came? I mean, you're the presenters, but also you're learning as well.
I will start. That right off the bat, I watched Dave Richards do some SketchUp work. That in the first 5 minutes, I had some internal conflict going on because I was I was here presenting about Fusion 360, and all of a sudden, Dave was manipulating a model in a way that looked very fun and organic to me. And I forgot how organic Fusion 360 could be when used correctly. And after I came to terms with my new existence, I realized that I was just going to sit there and watch Dave and just enjoy the show, really. And one thing that really struck me, though, is as he was doing things in Fusion 360, I was sitting there saying, as Dave was doing things in SketchUp, I was sitting there saying, oh, I could do that technique in Fusion. And it wasn't like, mine can do that too. It was more of I should incorporate that into my work. That's really great. And that was one thing that was eye-opening to me, because I think so many times people get wrapped up in the type of woodworking that they do, and they only look and listen at that particular type of woodworking. And I think there's something to be learned from, every woodworker out there pretty much. And bringing, if I'm able to see something in SketchUp that I'm going to then apply into my work, or that mindset or technique that I'm going to apply in a totally different program, it was just indicative of we're all just here to learn, and we might not use everything that we've heard or whatever, but it's all absorbing into our beings, and pretty cool. What about you?
I learned so much. I feel I was just thinking about all the little things that I'm going to take home from this, which is really exciting. I think it's really cool to come to this kind of event where it's so easy to get stuck in your way in your shop, and it's just really nice to see all these other perspectives. And as a presenter, the opportunity to go to other presentations is really exciting and really interesting. Amanda did I get to buy a whole bunch of colored markers now, because Amanda color coats her her cut list and her order of operations. I'm that's genius. I love that idea. And things like that maybe that works really well for me. Learned a whole bunch from both of you guys at your talks. Albert, I now want to do a whole bunch of 3D marquetry. And then just having people come to your talk and be hey, I had this guy that was you're joining a really long board. How do you set up your infeed rollers? I'm it's a pain. And he was no, you use a board, and then you set it with a Wixie gauge to the angle, so set it to 0. Then you slide that board to your roller table, and then set it at the same angle. Crazy.
What?
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah, I know. So
Is that person in here?
I don't see him.
Oh man.
But
He left because he was bored. That's a great idea.
it's so genius, and that's this super special part about coming to these, is just to have somebody even look at what you're doing and be hey, I do the same thing and I figured a better way out. And that's that's just so fun and so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Shea?
We crowdsource so much knowledge. For real, sharing knowledge between each other is beautiful. I don't know. I think probably the two was Wilbur Pan showing me his whole thing about dealing with tear out by reading the end grain. Mm-hmm. And I'm
that was crazy.
I'm man, that is, it's so obvious. And yet we don't once you understand what he's talking about, it's oh, duh.
Yeah.
But why is that not just a normal part of what's being taught about dealing with tear out? And then also the GDP of the Ming Dynasty. And and I'm thank you for that perspective. That was very helpful. Those are two things that I thought. Or even I've been wood turning on a lathe since I was 7 years old. And I'm sitting in Beth Ireland's talk. And
I saw you beforehand. You were psyched to go in there.
Yes.
You're I gotta go. Beth Ireland's about to go.
Yes. And so and I'm sitting there, and in the first 5 minutes, she's walking over the anatomy of a lathe, right? And you can easily just zone out, mm-hmm. right? Yes, I know what a headstock is, and yes, I know what a Reeves drive is. It's not a wedgie pulley, but yes, it is. But then she's and the bed is called the ways, and I'm oh. I had no idea that was called the Ways. No idea that was called the Ways. Yeah, so we have something to learn from everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially a woman that's been turning for 47 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just a little.
No, like a lot. Yeah. Production turning for 47 years.
What I didn't realize about Beth Ireland is that she like had a cabinet shop for 20 years or whatever, and she was like cranking out kitchen cabinets and stuff. I mean, every time I talk to her, there's always like a whole new like, you did what?
like a whole new layer.
Yeah, you loaded up a van that with like a lathe that pulled out of the back and drove around the country giving like turning lessons to kids, or like what? Who does that? Beth Ireland does, thank God. So, Vic.
Yeah, I love coming to these too, and for the same reasons, is that like not only do I get to chat with other instructors and figure things out, and sort of sometimes you just like throw out something that you do that you think might be a little crazy. And then people are like, oh, yeah, I do that. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I thought I was like the only person doing it. I didn't even do an Instagram post about it.
We're talking woodworking here, right?
But like one of the things I picked up was in your talk when you were talking about surfaces as tangential and radial. Yeah. And that's a really interesting way to think about wood because we're so used to like length, width, thickness. Mm-hmm. And then when you start thinking about the tangential portion and the radial portion, and then now it's like, because that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important.
Especially for what you're doing with chairs and stuff like that. But even as like a regular old furniture maker, like it's good to understand that distinction between those two, because that can inform a lot of like where you're getting parts out of things, or like being more selective about what you're going to end up getting. So yeah, that was cool. But I mean, like, and then the SketchUp thing with Dave, like I've taken 3 SketchUp classes, like from various people, and I couldn't get my head around it. And then Ben tried to teach me Fusion 360, and I mean, to be fair, it was a tall order. But the way Ben described things was sort of like it was better in my head, like I understood it. But then, like Dave's class, like when he made like 4 cubes, and then extruded it up, and all of a sudden it had 4 legs, and I'm like, what? Because like I would take like tens of minutes to like make a leg and then realize that I did it wrong. And then when I like multiplied them, they didn't work. And then to see that, and it's like, so it's when you find somebody who can teach you something in a way that sort of makes you understand or makes you understand deeper, that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah. You know, when you're working on a project in the shop, putting in hours of effort, measuring, cutting, sanding, the last thing you want is for your project to come apart because the glue didn't hold. Trust me, I've had it happen. That's why you should keep a bottle of Gorilla Wood Glue on the bench. It's non-foaming, cleans up with water, and dries a natural color. And of course, there's the reliable Gorilla strength you can always trust. The bond is actually stronger than the wood itself. Also, look for Gorilla Wood Filler for strong, durable repairs with high-performance stainability, paintability, and sandability. You're left with a professional-looking finished project every time. Gorilla is strong enough for the pro and easy enough for the beginner. Regardless of the user or the job, every bond is built by you, backed by Gorilla. All right, so has the audience had any time for, yes, sir? Hang on. We're doing this.
Thanks, Ben. Justin, first-time caller, long-time listener. I had a question for Vic, but now I want to know what the Wilbur Penn's end grain reading thing is.
Could we just invite him up to say it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Wilbur, would you need a board? Because you actually your episode you go over it in Shop Talk.
Yeah.
So you haven't been listening to all the episodes.
long-time listener, right?
I didn't say long-time rememberer. I guess I'll have to give it another listen. The question I had for Vic, I wanted to ask in the class but didn't, and that is, are there any advantages of having a Roubo that you miss, like the big, beefy, old-style workbench that like haven't translated to the MFT style?
Right. No, it's a good question. And to be fair, I never built a Roubo. The traditional style bench that I built was the one right after school, which was the modern hybrid, it was called, in the Scott Landis book that Michael Fortune had built. Tail vise and a record vise. And then when I wrote my first book, I wanted to make a bench design in there that was accessible to people. So I basically had a Nicholson bench that was made out of 2x material so that it was accessible, right? Because like not everybody's got access to a lumber yard or has the equipment to process lumber and all that other stuff. So I really think the only thing I sort of miss about it was the nostalgia of it, right? Because it like I wasn't unaffected by those shapes and those designs and all that stuff. Like I love the look of some of those benches. Like when I see a really nicely crafted Roubo, I'm like, that's super cool, right? But I guess the difference is that like I don't miss it enough in comparison to the versatility I'm getting out of the system I'm using now. And so like it's a beautiful thing, but like, and if it's something that I could like put on the wall, right, and just be able to look at it, you know what I mean? I would do that. But you know, it's a 3,000-pound bench, so I mean, it's difficult to hang.
So, like, full disclosure, I didn't get to listen to your talk, but listening to you comment on that, I'm thinking through like it comes back to people, you know, arguing over like hand tools and power tools, right? And all of that's this weird ancillary, irrelevant discussion because it's not, that's not the question. It's the wrong question, right? The question is what's the approach in the technique that we're using, right? So, for example, the little three-legged stools that I had at my table back there, right? If I do a production run of those, they're octagonized legs that are tapered. If I do a production run of those, I'm tapering those on the joiner, right? It's fast. I can do like 40 legs in an hour, right? And it's fast. But to transition, to do that on the joiner and get a clean transition into the tenon at the end, like doing that on the joiner is ridiculous, right? So you go to the bench and you grab a hand plane. It's a different approach, right? So like in the workbench, your style of working, right? It's the Roubo might not be the right approach in the style, the tools that you're using and the approach that you're approaching the material with. So then this multifunction table may be the proper work surface for you to approach the work in the way that you're approaching.
And that's what it boiled down to. It was like a lot of us are hybrid woodworkers, right? In the sense that, you know, like Mark Spagnolo sort of coined that phrase. And it's like the majority of us work with power tools and hand tools. There are some of us that, there are some people that work with hand tools alone. And there are and then there's others that work with only power tools. And so in my shop, I probably use about 80% machining techniques, and then I do the final work with the hand plane, getting the surfaces. Machines are really good at creating geometry. They're not really good at creating surfaces. And so that's probably where I am in the sort of hybrid nature. And so with that said, it didn't make sense to me to have a workbench that was primarily designed for hand tool work to be the most important tool in my shop, because the workbench is, like I was saying in my talk, like that is the one tool that you interface with the whole time, right? You're making parts, you're cutting joinery, you're doing things. Like your bench is your main work area. But if my main work area isn't designed to work with 80% of my workflow, then what am I doing?
Or if the 80% of your workflow is hindered by something you're going to do 5% of the time.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And you did like great demonstrations of using a hand plane with that bench too. Like it's still super versatile too for hand planing too, which I thought was really interesting.
Right. A lot of
Yeah.
people think you can't do it. And I think if anybody's got experience with a traditional MFT, like the Festool one, right, it's not known for being rigid. Right. And the reason for that is it's not designed to be. It's designed to be mobile first.
Yeah.
And so whenever you prioritize that with a work surface, it's going to be a little janky when you work it. But it's not bad with power tools. But if you pull out a scrub plane and start reducing a board's thickness by 1/4 of an inch, it's going to suck. And so that's where the traditional one doesn't work well. But when you make one that has like a solid wood base to it and like it's solid, it doesn't move anywhere. Like I do super heavy work with mine, and it's super rigid, and it's got the gusseting in it so that there's no sag because it's only an inch thick top. Right? When you compare that to pretty standard is like 2 inches usually, 2 inches of like maple, right? But then, you get the 4-inch Rubo tops and like they're huge, but I've never had a problem with sagging. I've never had a problem with not being able to take a beating from like a chisel. And I've mortised by hand on it, and I've tried all of that stuff, and it works fine. So if it can do it makes that 80% of the work much easier, and also handles the 20% of hand tools.
So, question for you two. I have a feeling. So, Shea, you have a rather large lumber company, or small in the grand scheme of lumber companies, but you have a large facility, right? I would assume you have many benches there.
Yeah.
But out of your benches, how many benches do you have in your shop? And Alex, the same for you. You're giving me this look of, oh no, I have to count my benches.
Alex has got a much bigger shop than we do, actually.
Okay.
I have a lot of benches.
Does the style of bench at that point get broken down to specific needs for specific tasks? Or is it just that's a horizontal surface and I'm going to use it as such?
You want to go?
Sure. So we have 3 benches. One is your traditional, I think it's a Schwarz anarchist bench.
Okay.
Kind of esque style. And if I'm hand planing, then I'm at that bench. Mm-hmm. Its height is right. It's rigid enough. It's long enough that when you're running a hand plane in the length of the bench, that the bench has got that weight in the right direction, right, in line with your cut. And that's like 90% of the work at that bench. I do some carving at that bench occasionally, but normally when it's taller than my second bench, which is actually a carving bench. It's a Veritas carving bench. It flips and swivels and has all the little It's basically an MFT table. It's essentially,
that's what that is.
Yeah, it's basically an MFT table that with a maple top for carving, right? So that is a very specific use. Actually, we have 4 benches. Then there's my daughter's bench, and that's a horizontal surface.
Yeah.
And then there's the main bench in the shop, which is actually almost like a giant assembly table with a big, thick maple top on it. And it's like 4 foot wide and 7 foot long. It's got an Oliver pattern maker's vise on it. And I don't know. I would actually advocate, for me and the style of work that we do, I actually advocate for like a really big flat surface type of bench because it's so versatile, and that's probably more of the type of work that we do. And we have multiple people working in the shop, and sometimes you just need a corner to set up and sand something.
Do you have multiple people working on the same bench at times?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. In the big bench, yeah, absolutely. There can be a person at each end. Yeah, there can be.
How big is that bench?
It's like 42 inches wide and 89 inches long or something like that. Or you're sanding. You're sanding a stack of shelves for a case piece, right? So it's like you throw blankets over the whole thing, and the stack of shelves is in front of you, and you pull one down, and you sand it, and you set it to the side, set it on another stack, and you're doing all of that on one big bench. We also have a bunch of rolling carts, so you can stack parts on those kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know that this idea that we put in our head that there's like this, there's this perfect thing is it's not a myth, but it's fluid. So there is something that will work best for the operation that you're doing or the type of work that you're doing right now. So, for example, the Veritas carving bench is like, that's the thing that I need when I did a church job last year that was 72 carved panels, right? Like, that's what I needed to keep my back straight, to be able to, do all that. So this idea that we have to have this specific thing one example for us is we just got rid of a 14-inch table saw with a 52-inch rip and went down to this little dinky 10-inch table saw that only rips 30 inches.
I thought I was going to say a little dinky 12-inch table saw.
No.
No.
And it's because we don't do we don't do sheet goods.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't break down sheet goods. So why do we have this big island in the middle of the shop that is not being used? So we made a bunch of little mobile carts that can still make up an island if we need the space, but otherwise they roll around. So that's better for the type of work that we're doing right now. Yeah.
Very cool. Alex, have you counted your benches?
I've counted my benches. It was kind of nice to hear Shea because I was adding more benches on. I have 6 benches, full benches. I have 4 Lee Nielsen benches, 1 Rubo, sorry,
Yeah.
dyslexic.
You could
I'm
put
sorry.
Rubio
Yeah,
on it.
yeah, you can put I have one of those. I have 1 homemade bench that I bought from somebody that's a big, similar to that, Michael Fortune style bench. And then 1, oh man, I forget what it's called. It also starts with an R. They're made in Russia. They're a little bit, that's like my lower level bench. And anyway, so big workbenches. Bear in mind, I teach classes in my shop.
I was just going to say, yeah.
So you do not need that many benches. When I do teach classes, I want everybody to have a nice bench because that first experience of being in a shop, working on a nice bench, which Vic's changing my mind on. Having a nice station where you have every bench has a sander and it's all set up. So they're really similar. I do have a 5-foot by 10-foot work table too as a layout table, and then rolling carts too.
So we're up to 8 benches.
Yeah, it's a problem. And then I'm and I need one more.
It's just little. You can squeeze it in there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what entices me because I can put it on wheels,
and then I can get 3.
I can get. I might have I have a tool buying problem, but like most woodworkers.
Why is it a problem?
Yeah. But my benches are really similar, and what I do is I have them at the same because I'm I'm not teaching all the time. I have 2 at the same level. Okay. So then it turns into one big bench with 2 of the benches together. They're all, you have a little bit more layout room, and then you can walk around and use vices as you go around your bench station. I was actually going to buy a left-handed bench that was on my list. So then, I share the shop with my husband. He has his double bench, and I wanted my double bench set up with a right-handed and a left-handed bench.
Are his benches in your calculations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
they
right,
are.
okay.
They're his.
He gets to use them.
Yeah.
My benches are my benches. His benches are my benches.
Somehow, all my stuff ends up on them, and I sand on them often.
We're gonna label you the bench queen.
I would take that label.
Amazing.
Alex Dolese, folks, the bench queen.
You can refer to me that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any questions arise in this over here? Vic, can you bring a microphone to
yes,
to
of
this
course.
kind gentleman? Oh, careful with the.
I don't think it'll reach that far.
There we go. We'll meet in the middle.
And specifically in woodworking, I felt I had to clarify. What don't you know that you would like to know more about in woodworking?
That's a great question. All of it. I want to know all of it. Because I started turning this year. I bought a lathe. I bought some tools. I bought too many tools because that's what you do when you start something new. You don't know what you actually need, and you read some marketing copy, and all of a sudden you've got things you don't need. But the whole point of that is that like I knew like in order to get decent at turning, you had to like be able to spend some time doing it. And I thought I was going to have some time to do that. And I do, and I have been. But it's like, I wish I could somehow like do all of it. I wish like I could learn to carve effectively. I wish I could like do marquetry. Because like I'm pretty good with solid wood stuff and I'm pretty good with veneer work, but like there's so many aspects of woodworking that I just don't know anything about. And I just feel I just wish you could somehow, I don't know, like have like different continuums that you're on. And like this Vic is like a carver and this Vic is like, you know, does this.
Can you imagine if we lived like 300 years? Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh my God. That would be a blessing and a curse to live like 300
sore.
years.
You'd be so sore.
Oh, my back. But yeah, I wish I could do it all. And I think, you know, like turning has been this one thing that I like wanted to try out because it's so compelling to me that you can stand at your lathe for an hour and come out with a thing, right? My things take like a week or longer sometimes. And so that's yeah, I wish I could do it all.
Jay?
That's like a loaded question, man.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I'm just like insatiably curious about things. So to me, it's like anything. I think the best way I can answer that question is I feel like as a craft community as a whole, oftentimes what happens is we just like we get so far in our exploration that we get the results that we were looking for and we stop. And we're kind of like, okay, well this works, and then we stop. And there's so much beyond that we never really like dig in any deeper, and then we just go on for the next 200 years cutting dovetails the same way or whatever the thing is, right? And there's so much more to learn. Like right now, something that, and I'm a geek, I'm a dork, I'm sorry, but like right now.
Don't apologize for that.
Right, like right now, I'm trying to like figure out. We mentioned steam bending in my talk this morning a little bit, and like I'm just completely geeked out on steam as a method of heating wood to plasticize it and bend it, and like people have all these bending failures and they're not sure why, and they like soak it in water and pour fabric softener in it and all those weird things. And it's like these are quantifiable things, right? Like I can sit down with a steam boiler mechanic and he can answer more questions about it than an average woodworker, right? And this crosses other crafts. Yeah. Right. And so like, I mean, I got like 7 grill thermometers like drilled into little samples of wood that are like kiln dried, air dried, soaked of different species sitting in the steam chamber. And I'm plotting graph charts right now. Like that's kind of the thing I'm geeking out about. Right.
Can we
like,
hang out?
What's that?
Can we hang out?
Sure.
What's interesting is that he's having trouble sitting right now. Like he wants to like stand and like run around a bit.
So like I'm just miserably in love with wood. And so like I really genuinely want to know more about it and like how it behaves. And so like, okay, so my cherry leg bent at, you know, 10-inch radius failed. So like why? You know, and recently I took the Forest Products Laboratory book that gave me all the steam bending max radiuses attainable with a strap. I mean, this is fascinating stuff, right? And it's like the Forest Products Laboratory is telling me like this is the max radius that you can attain with this piece of wood this size with a strap. And so I just did them all, right? Like, can I push this? You know, and so I bent a piece of elm at 1 3/4 inch radius.
How big? How big?
Is inch by inch.
Wow.
Right? And steam it without failure. Right? And it's like, whoa, like this actually works. So yeah, anything about wood, I think is my answer. Anything about this material that we just kind of like, we arrive at a certain place and like, oh, pine does this and oak does this, but it does so much more. Recently, and I'll just tell this really quick little thing. So like recently we run a retail lumberyard. We kiln dry material, for furniture makers. And so like hundreds of thousands of board feet a year. And red oak is really pretty easy to kiln dry. You know, it's prone to surface checking, but for the most part, it's pretty pretty manageable, and it's done at high production levels. So I bought some logs for chair stock, and I'm not the best log buyer in the world because I'm too permissive. But my logger's like, I got these big black oaks, but they're full of mineral stain, so the veneer mill won't take them. And I'm like, I don't care about stain. Most of these parts are getting painted, no problem. And we quarter saw it all for straight grain in 8/4 for chair legs, and 4 cycles through the kiln, and it's still at 14%. Right? Pulling our hair out, like, what is this, right? And enough phone calls and tenacity and digging and finding out that when mineral stain happens in Quercus species, it creates a bacteria inside the wood that bonds the water molecules into the cellulose that it won't release the moisture, right? And it's like, I'm just out there on a log deck in the middle of the woods, and it's like, oh, it's got a little bit of mineral stain, we'll be fine, right? And here this material is like teaching me something else, right? Just a completely new thing about like bacterias and the way that they interact with the wood, and it affects its moisture content. And so next I'm going to be like steam bending parts out of it. So I'm going to be like, hey, let's try this out. I mean, I got 2,000 board feet of it, so.
Alex, do you have any?
I feel like that was, I'm obsessed. It's so easy.
It's an obsession.
It's so easy to be obsessed with woodworking. And like, that's everything I build. I'm always learning something new. And that's like why I do it for a living. I'm so excited that I am going to go to the shop, and it's going to be something new and exciting. And I'm going to like work with a material I've never used, or it's going to change in a way that I wasn't expecting. And then there's so many different aspects of woodworking, which is just like so exciting. Like, I've never built a post and rung or a Windsor chair, and that's something I would love to do at some point and like dive into. I've been really obsessed with like Mortise and tenon joinery after like a whole year ago going to Bob's talk and like talking about like wood glue and how it like shrinks in a Mortise and tenon joint, and like how there's like always going to be a little gappage. I'm like so fascinated by that. I'm like, okay, like been breaking joints all the time and being like, should I put make my tenons with like notches in it to like get more glue in there, or like what's the perfect fit? And like that's something that's just like, it's something that I'm doing every day in my furniture, and then I can like obsess about it and like be like, what's the perfect way? Why has nobody like dived in? There's so many little things to dive like fully in, and you can be in there for years and like still be learning. I'm also really excited about upholstery right now too. I think that's like a really exciting element to like go hand in hand with work and like my work, and being able to use a different material and kind of play around with a different material, and like have something that's complementary to furniture too, of being like, how can I like make things like, better and sit better and play with a different medium. But yeah, it's all super exciting. It's just, I think like, you get so upset. I'm just like so obsessed. I can talk about it forever.
Like literally jump out of the bed in the morning.
Yeah. Like I'm excited. It's like hard for me to leave the shop in the evening. And I do this, I'm trying to take weekends off. It's really hard. But like I'm doing this like 50 hours a week, and I'm still like being like, oh, just a few more hours more. And that's why we do it.
Well, and what's interesting is that Alex and I were having a conversation, like I think on the first day in the middle of the floor out there, and I can't exactly remember what very nuanced conversation we were having, but she looks at me and she says, oh, I apologize. I could just go on forever. And I'm like, who are you talking to, girl? I'm like, this is why I love these things, is because you can have these very specialized, nuanced conversations about things that you think you're the only person in the world that cares. But the reality is that there's a bunch of people that are like super stoked about learning about mineral stain and how it, like that, when you were talking about that, Shea, I was like, wait, what? Bacteria can do that?
Yeah.
So it's like, so then now it's like, I'm going to go check that out, because it's like,
you go into a deep dark path then.
Right.
Like now I have to obsess about different bacteria.
And I'll text him at 2 a.m. and say, thanks a lot.
Yeah. I mean, God forbid,
It's like
God
3
God
days.
forbid you're like one of my lumberyard customers, because like I'm this shop troll that doesn't leave the shop, and my employees take care of the lumber customers. And then it's like if I come out and you ask the wrong question, like you're going to be there a while. It's like I haven't had any social contact for weeks, and so you just asked about bacteria and mineral stain.
You should have heard us talking about trucks this morning, of talking about like random subjects that we can get like way too obsessive about.
I heard about the truck conversation. We're not going to go back there.
Yeah.
I'm going to Pekovich my answer.
Oh.
And
He does this all the time, and it's
What's a
Yeah.
Pekovich?
so Mike Pekovich
just
has
watch.
a way of answering
Just
the
sit back and
question.
watch what's going to happen.
So I am two things professionally. I'm a professional hobbyist woodworker, right? I have a 9-to-5 job. I have benefits, but my job is being a hobbyist and representing a hobbyist and being a hobbyist and figuring out what hobbyists want to do, because that's by far the biggest part of the fine woodworking audience. So in that, when I think about what I want to learn, I think I will always be more excited about what other woodworkers are doing than what I'm doing, because I'm just screwing around in my shop. I'm having a blast doing it, right? But I'm not pushing boundaries. I'm just screwing around, and that's great. That's how I like to spend my time. And when I watch Alex and Shea work, and when I watch all this like new generation of, sorry, Vic, when
Should I get your walker?
but when
It's a good thing I'm Gen X and don't care.
How Gen X of you.
Yes, very much.
there's so much astounding work being done right now by this generation of up and coming woodworkers that I get so jazzed about. And I love seeing this exploration in art and craft and all of that. And that's what I want to absorb more of. I want to watch more of that. That to me is like for the good of the craft and the world and whatever. That's what is just keeping me excited as can be. Besides that, I can't come up with a better answer other than one better way of making stupid baritone ukuleles. That's it. It's just one. I just want it to be 1% better next time. And there's so many variables, and I'm just obsessing over that one little thing. And I feel like I'm in a little island doing it because I'm the only person that's like obsessing over that one very specific thing, but I'm having a blast doing it, So whatever gets me, whether that's another jig to make my bends easier, whether that's another, a CNC milling operation that makes, a cool, that makes something better for my fretboards or whatever, that's what I'm obsessing about. Or whether that is spending months of my life dreaming up and designing a vise that holds a ball hitch attached to a neck carving jig so that I can perfectly put the neck in any angle at a heartbeat, which has nothing to do with making my necks better. It will not make any of this better, but I will spend months obsessing over this because I'm having a blast doing it.
Now, Ben, I'm going to disagree with you on one point that you made, that you're not pushing the envelope, you're not doing anything innovative, because if you took in his talk about Fusion 360, he throws up this picture. You know what I'm talking about, right, Alex?
I heard about it.
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
So he's like, I usually cut my bridges, which are pretty complicated. I usually cut them by hand, and then I shape them by hand, and then I got to glue them in, and blah, blah, blah. So I got this idea, and he's so flippant about it. It drives me crazy. But he's talking about how he designed the bridge, which if you're a musician person at all, you understand that this is a critical piece. He designed it in Fusion 360 and then CNC'd it. And then had this innovative idea of like, well, I've got this 3D file if I build a box around this and change a couple of dimensions, I have a clamping caul that fits the bridge perfectly and allows me to put the requisite pressure all the way down on it. And that allows me to get like the best possible clamping pressure. So don't sit here and tell me that you're not doing anything new and you're not being innovative and blah, blah,
That's
blah.
bull.
100%.
I'm just screwing around in my shop and having a
but
blast.
so when I saw that, I have a 3D printer, mostly because of Ben and his stupid 3D printing. But like I'm thinking now, like clamping cauls. Like I never even thought of it for that. I'm busy making like masking tape dispensers. and you know little like my little wall hangers for my sanders and like all that kind of nerdy
That's cool
stuff.
too, man.
It is, but now like here's this guy who's just goofing around in his shop, but he's doing some serious innovating as far as like combining digital with a very difficult woodworking task, which is making an instrument.
Well, thank you. And I think we should end every episode on you saying something nice about me.
Don't press stop yet, Jeff.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, I just really want to say to the audience, thank you all so much for coming out. And it does not go unnoticed that everybody's here sharing information out here in the audience willy-nilly. And it's just awesome. And I don't ever want to think that we don't appreciate you coming out and spending your hard-earned time, money, and well-deserved free time and everything coming to an event like this. And I've been in the audience and paid my way to things like this, and I know it's a huge expense, and I know it's not easy to get the time and to make the time and all of that. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming out and being a part of this community and uplifting the craft and all of the good stuff. And thank you. And with that, that's this episode of Shop Talk Live. Please send questions and comments into Well, thank you so much to everyone who came out to Woodworking in America. We really, really, really appreciate you spending your time and your hard-earned money to come hang out with us and learn a little bit more about woodworking. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. And I know that I had a great time hanging out with a bunch of you. And I appreciate all of you coming and telling me that you listen to us on the podcast and all of that. Thanks to Vic, Shea, and Alex for joining us on the show. And thank you to everybody in the fine woodworking, popular woodworking, and woodsmith staffs. Y'all, we did it. All right. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great one. Bye.